call the November 1st Sherburne County Board of Commissioners meeting to order, and we will begin with a moment of silence and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we now move ahead to all of our regular meeting proposed agenda.
So moved.
I'll
Is there any
second.
changes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Commissioner Schmiesing, there are no changes at this point. I would note for the board, we did have an updated grant agreement for item 5.3. It was handed out to you this morning, and there are copies for the public on the table. I will highlight the changes when we get to that item 5.3.
Okay,
I'll move the proposed agenda, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
motion had been made and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay, now let's move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
A motion's been made to approve the consent agenda as is. So is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay, now we can move on to proclamations and announcements. And the first one that we will be Operation Green Light for Veterans Week. And is Bruce here? Bruce, would you like to make any comments before we?
Morning, Commissioners. I'd like to thank you for the support. This green light was started roughly around 2013 and kind of came into effect about 2015. And it's the colors for hope, renewal, well-being. And in the military sense, it's when you get a green light, that means your mission is approved to go. And this is a way of celebrating or acknowledging some of our nation's bravest, hardest working men and women who typically have a work day of, normal work days about 12 hours plus. And it's just hard to show them the appreciation that they deserve when they get back home out of uniform, things of that nature. So this is just an opportunity, and it's actually for anyone. And you will see homes already with porch light turned green, blue, or red for other law enforcement or firefighters. So I appreciate the support, and thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, we'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and then we will approve after he has read it. Okay.
Resolution number 110122-AD-30401, supporting Operation Green Light for veterans. Whereas the residents of Sherburne County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all of the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas Sherburne County seeks to honor these individuals who have paid the high price for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future, and whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life, and whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at a high risk for suicide during their first year after military service, and whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for Veterans, and whereas the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted. Now therefore be it resolved that, with designation as a Green Light for Veterans County, Sherburne County hereby declares November 7th through November 13th, 2022, including Veterans Day, November 11th, a time to salute and honor the veterans and sacrifice, the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. Be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Sherburne County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window of their place of business or residence. Signed this day, the 1st of November, 2022.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move to approve?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to approve the resolution honoring the veterans and our service members in Operation Greenlight.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do I ask for discussion on this? Yeah, is there any further discussion? Go ahead.
I would just note that I think we have a couple veterans in our midst, and maybe we could ask if they'd be willing to stand and we could recognize them. Dave? And others?
That'd be great. If veterans can stand.
Veterans in the room.
Thank you so much for your service.
Yes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Thank you so much. Okay, now we can move on to item number 3.2, which is to consider and approve a proclamation of November 12th through the 20th, 2022 as National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week. And we have Jody, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just wanted to share a little bit of a slide here to update everybody on our agency's housing services. We've been providing housing services for just a little over a year now. We now have 2 full-time housing social workers, Henry, who just started, and Lori, who's been with us just a little over a year. We were fortunate to get community living infrastructure grants for those positions and some ARPA dollars as well to fund those positions. The difference between the two is that Henry is going to be doing more active outreach at our sheltering locations, emergency shelters in St. Cloud, Rivercrest locations, and identified encampments where we know of individuals living outside and trying to help prepare them for the cold weather and come up with alternative plans. And then Lori, her role is to provide more long-term case management to try to help individuals reach self-sufficiency and stabilize their living situations. I did want to share just a little success story from this last year that we received. And this was regarding Lori, one of our workers. A family member had written in saying, "Without your help and support, My dad would be homeless right now, bouncing back and forth between my house in Missouri and whatever family he could find to stay with in Minnesota, while feeling like he's a burden on us the whole time. Because of you, he has so much more than a home. You also gave him his independence back, but more importantly, his feeling of self-worth. I can't imagine anything more that you could have done. You were there every step of the process and available whenever he had questions, even when you were homesick. This is just my opinion, but I think it would be a mistake for them to ever eliminate the job that you're doing, and they should let you keep doing it for as long as you want, because we couldn't have asked for anybody better to do this with. And I wish Lori was here today, but she's not, but I think that's just a great reflection of the type of work that she's doing. So with that, for the first time, we'd like to present a proclamation for Homeless Month.
You go ahead and read the proclamation.
A proclamation from Sherburne County. Whereas for over 26 years, the National Coalition for the Homeless and National Student Campaign Against Hunger and Homelessness have sponsored National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week. And whereas the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners recognizes that hunger and homelessness continues to be a problem for individuals and families, and whereas communities can engage in efforts to encourage support for homeless assistance service providers, as well as community service opportunities for students and school service organizations. And whereas there are organizations and churches in our community committed to providing supportive services, as well as meals, food, and supplies to people experiencing homelessness. And whereas Sherburne County Health and Human Services has added 2 housing social workers to their staff to address the homelessness needs of our Sherburne County residents. And whereas the purpose of the proclamation is to inform and educate the public about local hunger and homelessness. Now therefore be it proclaimed on this first day of November 2022 that the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners does hereby encourage all citizens to recognize those people who do not have housing and need support from citizens and private, public, nonprofit service entities, and hereby proclaim the week of November 12th through 20th, 2022 as National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, I'd just like to make a comment, really this ties together with the one we just had. Homelessness among our veterans is an issue, so two things really go hand in hand, working together.
That's right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to just say that Friday I attended a homeless youth meeting at the Big Lake High School addressing homeless youth in the community, and they have a group in Becker as well. And you have to understand, when there's homelessness amongst a family, it affects the kids and their access to be able to have a sustainable education, and also threatens their ability to graduate. So it is a very broad issue that is out there and becoming more prevalent as people deal with food insecurities and housing insecurities. So I'm happy that we are recognizing this.
And if I would like to also add that, I believe it's a moral and ethical responsibility of ours. The county is often the safety net for the people that need us the most. And it also is a financial responsibility, because to address these needs in the long run for these people to find sustainable housing, sustainable food sources, things like that will affect our bottom line. We can't always quantify it on ledgers. That's the hard part. But it does affect our financial stability also. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you for your support.
And you have a guest here with you.
We do. If there's time on the agenda, because this work is done so much in community partnerships, I did ask Cindy Lay from Open Doors for Youth to be here today to talk a little bit about what her organization does for our community.
Can we vote on the approval, and then we'll go with that, okay? So, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion's passed, and now we can have our,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'll just skip the slides because I think that's going to take up a little bit of extra time, but so I'm going to wing it a little bit if that's okay with you, because I think my slides are about 10 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But thank you for having me, and we're thrilled to be in partnership with Sherburne County to address homelessness in our communities. Open Doors for Youth is a drop-in center in Elk River, and we serve youth experiencing homelessness or housing instability ages 16 to 24. We've been in existence since 2015, so a little over 7 years. And really, Open Doors for Youth came about through a very small group of community members gathering to have conversations about concerns they had about youth experiencing homelessness in our community and the gap in services that are there specifically for youth in that age range. And so over the course of several years, we had many conversations, and at some point we identified that what we thought was needed was a drop-in center where they could come to a place where they're welcome and they feel safe, where they can get have access to basic needs, and also receive case management services, and most importantly, to build connection with trusted adults. And so in 2015, Open Doors for Youth opened our doors. And since then, we have served 434 individual youth for over 6,200 visits or contacts with our staff members. We have grown from beginning as an all-volunteer-led organization. Currently, we now have 4 paid staff, including myself as the executive director. We have 2 case management positions. We also partner with a mental health therapist, and we have an administrative assistant. We also provide free medical care on a weekly basis in partnership with a free clinic. And we're very excited about a new partnership with Sherburne County where we will be a site for the free dental, mobile dental clinic on a monthly basis as well, beginning in December. So our partnerships with folks in the community and other organizations in the community are really critical to sustaining our work and to continue to fill the gaps in services for folks experiencing homelessness in our communities. It's often said that youth experiencing homelessness in rural communities in particular are an invisible population. We often don't see them as you might see them in metro or urban areas. And one of the reasons is that, as I said before, there's still a lack of services. We have no shelters, we have no emergency housing, and so you're not going to see them gathering in those spaces because we simply don't have them. And so as an invisible population, oftentimes there might be the perception that, well, we don't see them in our community, therefore it's not a problem, and it's really only a big city problem. And that simply is not the case. Every community across the state and the nation has folks experiencing homelessness. And so I think what I want to stress is our partnerships with the county, our partnerships with other civic organizations and small businesses within Sherburne County are really critical as we continue to work towards addressing, I think, mainly the lack of shelter and lack of emergency housing. So again, we're looking forward to continuing our partnership with Sherburne County to address those needs. And I appreciate you having me here today to add on to what Jody has already shared with you. So thanks so much.
go ahead.
I want to thank you for being here, Cindy, and thank you for your recent meeting up in the Princeton area.
Yes.
The outreach that's happening up in that area. So I wasn't able to make the meeting, but I know George, and really, George Golden is a board member.
Yes.
And very active up in our area, so I really appreciate that outreach happening.
Right, and we're happy to do that. I think one of our main goals is to continue to be out in the community
and raising awareness about homelessness in our rural communities. As much as we see it, or it might be experienced in urban communities, it's the same. We just don't see it as much, and so to continue to educate ourselves and raise awareness is really critical.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. This
Thank
is
you.
really important. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any comments?
Madam Chair, just I think if it'd be possible to share this, your slide presentation that we weren't able to see today, if we could get that to the commissioners and possibly post it on the website so others can view it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now,
Madam Chair, I just
yes.
also wanted to mention that tomorrow there is going to be the 5th Annual Faith Community Outreach Event at the Government Center here in the Maple Room from 1:30 to 3:30. And that is also a collaborative event to work with our faith community to discuss resources and assist with food and housing insecurity and mental health. So anybody that would like to participate, please come out. The more people working towards this issue, the better. Thank you.
Okay. So now we move on to open forum. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 4 people signed up.
Okay, Bruce, do you want to go ahead and go through the,
Sure, do you want me to do my announcements then later when we do commissioner announcements?
well, commissioner announcents can go first. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll just do the administrative ones at that time with the commissioners'
Okay.
updates. Okay. The purpose of the open forum section of the county board meeting is to allow public input and/or information to be presented to the board that does not require action by the board. It is requested that speakers refrain from personal attacks of any kind against another person, commissioner, or employee. It is requested that speakers refrain from campaign-type presentations. The time limit is 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 5 speakers per open forum. The time limit may be shortened or extended at the discretion of the board chair. The open forum may be continued following the conclusion of the regular board business meeting agenda items. It is requested that all input or information be addressed to the Board of Commissioners and not to members of the audience. Speaker handouts are public information. The county may make copies of such handouts for the public if needed. The county board chair will ensure that the open forum policy is followed.
Okay. So who is our,
Madam Chair, our first speaker is Gary Tonsager of Elk River, speaking on election integrity.
good morning.
Well, good morning. Well, it's almost election day. Our Sherburne County Community Election Integrity Team has been coming here now for a year to educate and warn our county commissioners and fellow citizens about the dangers that have been baked into our election systems. From the machines that count and relay our votes, to the voter rolls, to the poll pads that help us check in when it's time to vote. Here is just a summary of a few of the problems we've uncovered and addressed to the commission. The Dominion 5.5C Sherburne County purchased recently for $500,000 is run on Windows Server 12. Windows Server 2012 support expires on October 10th, 2023. According to Microsoft, that means the new Dominion voting system will be obsolete after just one election cycle and before the next presidential election. Quote, Microsoft will no longer offer any support for the operating system, meaning it won't be long before the systems are specifically targeted and exploited, end quote. By the way, our previous Dominion voting system ran on Windows operating system 7 that support ended on January 14th, 2020, 10 months before the 2016 presidential election. We've also shown evidence that the Dominion voting systems are connected to the internet, from Williamson County, Tennessee to Fulton County, Pennsylvania, where independent third-party inspectors have proven that they are all indeed connected to the internet and can transmit and change votes. And now the poll pads. We have shown evidence that the poll pads we use here in Sherburne County from No Inc. are connected to the internet. That means they can be easily accessed and altered. So what does this mean? Well, Eugene Yu, the CEO of Conic Pole Chiefs Pole Pads, was recently arrested in Los Angeles County, California on suspicion of sending sensitive data to a server in Wuhan, China. LA prosecutor Eric Neff suggested that the crimes alleged committed by Conic and Yu amounted to, quote, the largest data breach in the United States history, end quote. So where are we now? We are 1 week out from the most important election of our lifetime. Apparently, anyone who is awake knows exactly what I'm talking about. We need to wake up now or our country will soon be gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Tracy Soden of Big Lake speaking regarding a citizen statement.
Good morning. Over the last year, you've been given proof of the unreliability of the Dominion voting software. You continue to state that everything is good with the election process in Sherburne County, yet you refuse to keep an image cast of each ballot, you refuse to have a public hearing, or support hand tabulating in the whole county. The county attorney and auditor interfered in Haven Township, in which they voted to hand tabulate their ballots for the primary. You and the auditor interfered in Baldwin Township when they voted to not use the poll pads. Both of these is within their rights as towns. If you're for fair and honest elections, why aren't you allowing these things to take place? Your support for the largest solar farm in the state will end up being about 3,200 acres. This isn't about homeowners' rights either. This farm, in turn, will use 20% of Sherburne County's farmland. This is very concerning, especially in a time when food production is at the forefront. Solar is an unreliable source of energy, especially in Minnesota, where we have less sun in the winter. Electricity cannot be produced on snow-covered, cloudy, or stormy days. The electricity production that solar produces just isn't there to keep up to the demands of our county, let alone Minnesota. And yet you have signed off on supporting this outlandish project. Why? Why, if you're for this county's residents that you represent, are you supporting this project? And last, but certainly not least, is your proposed tax levy, which is at 6.99%. You say you're for fiscal responsibility, but you keep spending. Why are you putting more money, which you don't have, for instance, into the park system? You should be freezing the budget and live within your means instead of spending. Go ahead and blame your votes on receiving less support from the state or federal government. That's just an excuse for your spending. With every budget year, you continue to spend more of the taxpayers' money. Are you even factoring in the negative tax implications once the coal power plant is closed, which you support? That, in reality, is going to negatively affect us homeowners. As a homeowner in this county, I'm not looking forward to seeing my next tax statement. With the county's valuation of my property and with your tax levy, it will continue to break my family's budget. And I'm willing to bet I'm not the only one. Yet you state you're for fiscal responsibility and common sense. Your votes don't align with what you state. How is this for the residents of Sherburne County? Furthermore, I do not consent to using the poll pads this election season. Thank you.
Next, we have Dean Ditterman of Elk River. Day-to-day of Billy Graham.
That's correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
To one of the most religious men of his day, Jesus said, "Ye must be born again." Nicodemus could not substitute his profound knowledge of religion for spiritual rebirth, and neither can we. I have read a book on water skiing, and it did not take long for me to learn I could never learn to water ski by reading a book. I would have to experience it. I have read a number of books on golf, but none of them seem to improve my game. I must get on the course and play. You may study theology and religion. There comes a time when you must experience Christ for yourself. On another note, with the new rule, can't tell the farmer what to do on his own land. I can't wait to see what happens when the farmer comes in and wants to develop his land with half-acre and quarter-acre lots. What I really think we need to do is have a changing of the guard. Thank you.
Lastly, we have Kari Watkins of St. Cloud speaking on elections.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am quoting from the Big Lake Township Board meeting on 9/28/22, their minutes. Big Lake Township Clerk Kimberly Moss gave a review of the primary election. There were several concerns from the primary which were brought to her attention. Tabulator lost time between public accuracy testing and election day. Precinct 1, poll pad loaded with incorrect data. Precinct 2, ballot reading concerns. Precinct 2, poll pads missing precinct finder, all township precincts, and as usual, tabulator summary reports were printed at all 3 township precincts. Many of the concerns have been or are in the process of being resolved, either by county staff or township staff. However, the unusual report included a -1. Other county governmental units also had negative numbers reported on their summary tapes. Diane Arnold contacted Dominion about the unusual reports. Dominion's response was included with the packet of information provided to the supervisors, which is only meant, and it is also part of the official minutes. The reported information was due to a selection made, which is only meant for closed primary elections. It was noted that Minnesota holds open primaries, and it is unclear how the setting for this report was selected. There are additional questions from the review which were beyond the scope of Brenda's ability to answer. The board felt those questions should be sent to Diane Arnold, County Auditor Treasurer, to be addressed, end quote. Apparently, this unusual report issue also affected Becker, Blue Hill, Baldwin, Clear Lake, Haven, Livonia, Oric, Palmer Townships, and the cities of St. Cloud, Clear Lake, Zimmerman, and Becker. I also know that Steve Nelson was working as an election judge in Elk River Precinct, and the poll pads there had the wrong precinct loaded in it. It seems like a lot of issues could be avoided if we use paper poll books and hand tabulate the vote. I also want to bring to your attention a complaint that was brought before Georgia State Election Board regarding the Election Assistance Commission. This report talks about the lapse of certification of Pro V&V. It also speaks of an alleged cover-up of this issue by EAC and its alleged fabrication of documents to cover this lack of certification. As my elected officials in charge of determining the method by which I vote, you owe it to me to read this complaint and act upon it. Do not pass this off to Mr. Messelt to deal with. Do your job.
Amen.
That is all of our speakers, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to take a few minutes?
I think we're good.
Take a break, or no?
Let's go.
Okay, so we'll go then. To our regular agenda, and our first item is 5.1, which is to consider and approve a prosecution joint powers agreement with the city of Elk River. We have Kathy Haney and Scott Baumgartner. Hi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Mr. Baumgartner was unable to attend via Skype or WebEx or whatever the latest version we're using today. He sends his apologies. You may or may not be aware, but for a number of years, we've had a joint powers agreement with the city of Elk River in terms of prosecution. And what we've done is we've sat down and defined what our respective duties are. And in large measure, we do it for two reasons. Number one is we don't want to duplicate services or have any confusion about who serves what and who charges what cases. That has proven to be extraordinarily effective for us. And that partnership has also resulted in us sharing resources. If he needs help in terms of coverage, we provide that to him, and vice versa. He's also provided coverage for us. I had realized that it's to lapse at the end of this year, and so we would like to renew that for an additional 4 years with the board's consent. I have to tell you that we work hard to emulate what happens in our law enforcement community, where they do share resources and they do collaborate and they do work together to better serve our citizens. And we're trying to do the same thing at the prosecution level. With that, I would ask for a motion to amend the agreement to allow for another 4 years.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chairman.
Any discussion?
We have these agreements with other cities and that around the county, don't we?
Actually, we don't with other cities because I hold the prosecution contract for every city but the city of Elk River.
Okay.
We do have joint powers agreement with some of our townships. Technically, I don't have authority to prosecute any township ordinances, but we've worked into conjunction with the townships to allow us to deal with safety issues. So we do that basically as a courtesy to the townships because, like I said, we want to make sure that we have continuity, and it's easier for me. I'm already here every day, every week, every year, so it's easier for us to provide that coverage. So,
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. And now we can move on to item 5.2, which is with Planning and Zoning, to consider and authorize submission of a Greater Minnesota Recycling and Composting Grant application to the MPCA for a proposed household hazardous waste facility.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jillian Carlson. I'm an environmental specialist down in Planning and Zoning. A little bit of history about this RBA. As discussed in our proposed permanent household hazardous waste facility workshop on October 18th, we discussed the fact that there's an apparent need for a permanently sited disposal facility within the county. And we also discussed the fact that we'd be bringing this RBA forward today. So today, we are seeking board approval to apply for the Greater Minnesota Grant to partially fund this project. We are seeking $250,000 in grant dollars. Grant applications are going to be due November 9th, so coming up pretty soon here. And we are anticipating award notices December of this year. The funding agreement period would be from February 2023 to June 30th in 2025. And keep in mind, this is a reimbursement grant, so you're not committing to this entire project today by approving us pursuing grant dollars now. Any questions?
I'll move approval to authorize the staff to submit a Greater Minnesota Recycling and Composting Grant application to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve this request. Is there any discussion?
Well, I just want to clarify, I was unable to be at the workshop, but I think that we are entering into an ask for this, but it certainly does not mean that we're moving forward with it. There is an awful lot of discussion. We have a relationship with Stearns County now for some of this material. So I think at some point there's got to be more of a discussion, and whether we get the grant or not, whether you move forward or not, and probably be a new board that will be reviewing that, I would guess. Okay.
Any further discussion? Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just echoing a little bit of what Commissioner Schmiesing noted, we had committed to you at the workshop that we would pull together the Business Risk Committee as well, because this would be a new line of business to own and operate a facility. We were unable to do so in the time frame to get this in front of you for the grant cycle. So we have some due diligence to do as staff when we bring this back to you in terms of what MCIT tells us, what other counties tell us, as well as the relationships you noted. So there's some more work to do, and we'll be doing that spade work so that this board or a future board will have all of the information to make a decision.
This will be an opportunity when they have the discussion that if we are awarded, there's some dollars to assist. So if we don't do it now, we miss out on the application time.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Now we can move on to item 5.3, which is to consider and approve Luplin Brewery Score Grant Agreement.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As indicated in the RBA, staff is requesting board to approve the score grant agreement for Luplin Brewery in the amount of $17,600 for the purchase of a trailer, heat blanket, 2 dump bins to be exclusively used for the collection and transportation of spent grain to be fed to livestock. As you will recall, the Luplin Brewery Score Grant request was presented to County Board August 16, 2022. The request was tabled, and the board requested staff to work with Luplin Brewery and the County Attorney's Office to develop language in the score grant agreement that would allow for other breweries located within the county to utilize the trailer for the same purpose. The updated agreement in front of you provides for that language that was requested, and Luplin has agreed to the agreement as presented. The County Attorney's Office has also reviewed the agreement and approves of its form. Are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just a point of clarification. The other thing that was added from the original agreement back in April was a condition that farmers interested in accepting the grain are solicited. So that's also been added to this, as well as a reporting requirement. And you have the updated agreement in front of you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'll move approval.
Motion's been made to approve the request. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I would just like to discuss, I'm the one that held this up, that's been a thorn in everybody's side. I appreciate Luplin's patience as we worked our way through this, but I felt it was important that the opportunity, if we were going to invest score monies in hard property, a trailer, that it should be available to others to use and the other farmers to be able to get some of that grain should they want it. So I do appreciate it, and I know it was a long, difficult road, and I hope we didn't do any permanent damage along the way. So I think it's a good effort, and I think the end result is justifiable. Thank you.
Madam Chair, and I agree, being able to have this, these 2 trailers accessible to other farmers that can go to other breweries and collect this product to feed their livestock and stuff. And having it be in the proper containers is highly important. There was a farmer that came to pick up some of the grain here the other day, and without having a dump trailer, they loaded it up into the back of their truck and unfortunately, it ended up on Highway 10. And so then they had to be hand shoveling it off of the highway. So I think a lot of farmers are going to appreciate this opportunity to haul the spent grain for their livestock purposes, and it keeps it out of our landfills and our sewer systems. So, all right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to item 5.4, which is to receive the American Rescue Act Plan update and consider approval of recommended expenditures. And we have Dan with us.
Good morning, Commissioners. This week, we just have one biweekly expenditure under the 50,000 threshold for a total of $45,150. So looking for a motion to approve that expenditure.
Is there someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the request. Any discussion?
Well, let's go over that proposal a little bit. We're real slow on the, what all does it entail? Maybe just for the
This is for pre-employment evaluations in the jail.
jail.
Yeah. And it was in, the description's in the packet if anyone has any questions.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
The second request is one over 50,000 for court backlog cost. We have had some additional costs that increased over the budget amount, and we're anticipating about $80,000 in additional costs. So we'd like to use ARPA dollars to cover those costs, and it was an allowable use in the guidelines for ARPA dollars. So the total is $80,000 that we're requesting for that project.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
And the last expenditure is for jail overtime costs, and I will turn it over to Michelle Merrick for that explanation.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are looking to get reimbursed for overtime costs related to COVID and staffing shortages within the jail. The third quarter amount is $203,102 for a total of 108 hours of overtime for the jail staff.
Madam
Would
Chair, I'll
anyone
move
like to make-
approval.
Okay, motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we can move on to the Commissioners' correspondence. Would anyone like to start?
While you guys look through your calendars, I could give the administrators update if you'd like.
You go ahead.
Okay. A couple things on the upcoming calendar for the community and for the board. First of all, today is the public accuracy test of our election equipment. It's actually going on right now, and then there's an afternoon opportunity for the public to come in and see the equipment and how it is used and operated. And it's part of the transparency for the community to be able to observe that. Also, just a note, on December 1st, we will have our Truth and Taxation hearing at 6 p.m. in the county boardroom. And then December 5th through the 7th is the AMC Annual Conference. I do hope that you will let us know if you're planning on attending even part of it, so we can make sure that we have opportunities to gather and also to help you if you need help with reservations or registration. Circling back to the last board meeting, again, just a little bit of response on things that were discussed, and I just have a short list here I'll go through with you. There was a question raised about the UPS or post office box addresses for voters. Just a note, after discussing this with the staff and the attorney's office, Minnesota Statute 201.061 actually allows for people who are under the Safe at Home program to use a post office box for a legal address. It's a protection issue for those individuals. We have already followed through with all of the individuals that were brought to our attention. Notices have been sent to the post office as well to the UPS store, and county staff are watching those addresses and will continue to monitor to make sure that there are not issues coming up at the election. The second issue raised was about deceased persons voting. We had discussed this earlier in the year. Minnesota is one of, I believe, 13 states that allows individuals who have cast their vote before dying, that those votes are allowed to be counted. So we follow state laws and guidelines when it comes to handling votes from people who are then deceased. There was a question made about duplicate votes. Again, when those are brought to the county's attention, they are reviewed. What I would note is that those that can be prosecuted for voting twice are, but if a case cannot be prosecuted, there will not be a charge. That's a simple, legal, really key issue. If there is lack of evidence or lack of mens rea, then there cannot be a prosecution, so then there are not charges brought. Another comment made was about a receipt of voter registration in a significant number. We note that in discussing this with the Secretary of State's office, that new voter registrations come in batches, so they're not real time. And so it's not unusual to see an increase or a decrease at different times during the calendar year. Also, comments were made about voters from different states. There is a system between states that track voting registration by change of address notices. Again, like any large system, there is always the possibility that somebody doesn't notify, but if it is notified and they follow the law, then those updated voter registrations are caught. Finally, with respect to other claims that were made, we are reviewing those, and additionally, even after the board meeting, there was conversations with the Sheriff's Office. That is a fact-finding process, and that process is underway and will continue. So when concerns are brought, they are investigated or reviewed and processed accordingly. Last but not least, with respect to the comments about Sherco Solar, I just want to note for the board and for the community, Sherburne County has no role at all in any large solar facility. We also have no role with respect to the existing Sherco coal-fired plant. Those are regulated by the state of Minnesota under the Public Utilities Commission. The amount of ability for any elected official at the local level to influence that is limited to what you can do by lobbying the state. And we'd encourage folks who have ideas or passions to contact state officials and say, let's get this done. With respect to that, I would note, every once in a while when there's a construction activity, we may have to issue a ditch permit or a temporary right-of-way permit. So if this project moves forward, we will be doing very low-level permits. So we can't say we have zero involvement in this, but in terms of any effective decision-making, this is not a county activity.
Thank you. Is anybody ready to go?
I can go quickly, Madam Chair. I wasn't at the last board meeting. I did have a MICA meeting that I attended, airport, at the newly formed airport authority. I attended that meeting. And then the AMC district meeting on the 24th I attended as well. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, I attended the open house in Zimmerman regarding the County 4 rebuild. I attended the Sherburne County Park Project work session. I attended the Tri-Capped board meeting. I can't talk today. We had an executive steering committee meeting. I popped in at Kathy Stevens' retirement gathering at Baldwin Township and just want to put a shout out for Kathy for many, many, many years of service to our township and our county. She's been a great partner. I attended the AMC District 5 meeting. We had a legislative briefing on the federal or the state level. I toured again the Iron Shoe Farm with our two county extension educators, Dana and Anthony, and shout out to Carla Mertz and the operation she runs up at Iron Shoe and her partnership with Lupulin. Lupulin and Carla have a partner with their spent grain, and she's very grateful for that. So it was great to see her farm and all that's coming together, or all that happens there. And just wanted to reiterate, like Rayanne said, our faith community outreach is somewhat unique to our county. When I talk to my colleagues in other counties, they don't do this, and this is our 5th annual. And I think that we have a role to be in partners with our faith leaders, because with a lot of the issues that we we cover and discuss. It's great to have them at the table. So that is tomorrow here from 1:30 to 3:30. And the issues that are going to be addressed will be food and housing insecurity and the mental health crisis. All are welcome. Thank you.
You wanna go ahead?
Attended, on the 18th, the Premier Marine Open House in Big Lake. It was a great turnout, beautiful facility. And also attended the Great River Energy Reliability Open House. And that is a project that is coming in regards to supporting a reliable and resilient flexible energy grid. They are looking to upgrade. They're installing approximately 130 miles of a new double circuit 345 kV transmission line. And also segment 2 would be replacing approximately 20 miles of an existing 230 kV transmission line to a double circuit 345 kV line from the Benton County substation to the new Cassie's Crossing interconnection area, which will be down around the Big Lake area. So they were just looking for input. There's already transmission lines that are running along that corridor. They are just looking to increase the transmission lines and stuff. So it was a really very explanatory. They got a lot of good feedback from along the corridors that these will run. Sounds like they're probably going to basically run them along the same lines that the existing lines are already there. Also had on the 19th a Substance Use and Prevention Coalition meeting, had a park system meeting, and also attended the Airport Authority Board meeting in St. Cloud. October 20th, I attended our canine Bruno, who passed away from a health event, and they had a memorial service for him. It was a great, just amazing to see the turnout, the amount of canine officers that came out, and they had a procession that started at the Government Center, proceeded down Highway 10, went through the community Big Lake, and ended up at the fire hall with a memorial service. And just want to give a shout out to Officer Guy Chafee, who was Bruno's partner, and just keeping him in our thoughts and prayers. October 24th, attended the AMC District 5 meeting. Also had Options Board meeting that evening. October 25th, attended the Big Lake Chamber meeting where our administrator and assistant administrator gave an update on the county and had a lot of great questions, and I think everybody appreciated the interaction. And also October 20th, had a Wave Youth Center meeting that evening as well. October 26th, I met with troop leader Selena Schmidt and her Girl Scout troop, giving her, basically they were working on earning their Minnesota badge, and part of that requirement was needing to hear about the history of a community. So we talked about the history of Big Lake. And I don't know if people know, but the original county seat was Big Lake. It was the original county seat for 10 years back in the 1850s, and eventually transitioned to Elk River with a lot of angst and discussion over that transition. So I'm just not as sure if everybody is aware that Big Lake was the county seat for 10 years. And they were fascinated to hear that as well. And so, and also attended the council meeting that evening. They presented Officer Chafee with a shadow box of memorabilia honoring Bruno and their partnership, and then also attended the township meeting that evening as well. October 27th, had our CMRP meeting, Central Mississippi River Partnership, and just wanted to give a little update on where we're at. we are working towards creating a joint powers agreement between Sherburne County and Wright County, so stay tuned for further information coming up on that in regards to our work towards a river crossing need in our area. And so we're getting closer, also working on a RFP for a purpose and need study. There's a lot of things that you have to do that the state requires and the federal government requires in doing a lot, like studies and stuff in order for these things to progress forward. So stay tuned. We are working hard to eventually get that crossing a reality. And also then, October 28th, like I had said, I attended the Addressing Child Homelessness in Big Lake. And it was great to see a lot of partners. There was a lot of faith partners. There was a lot of Open Doors was there, also the Wave Youth Center, a lot of people from a lot of different various organizations. And so I think by coming together, because one of the things that the school is charged with is there is a federal requirement. It's called the McKinney-Vento Act, and they are charged with having to identify children that are at risk with homeless insecurity, food insecurity, because the goal is that you want to get these children to graduation so they have a chance at a future. So that is a federal law, and it was good to hear everybody coming together, hearing some of the things that are problems and how we as a community can respond and react to providing what we can. A lot of things I heard too was food insecurity was right up there. And one of the things that the schools could use a lot of times when you have some youth that is dealing with homelessness, they don't have access to microwaves or refrigerators. So they like to see the opportunity to give them like some gift card of some sort that they can go to either a Culver's or a Quick Trip and access hot food. And so I have no doubt that we're going to be able to wrap our arms around this and help in that situation. And also then had a MnDOT 7W meeting that day as well. And that about wraps it up. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it?
So I attended on the afternoon of the 18th, Healthy Minnesota Partnership meeting, and we focus on a lot of things that Leanne just talked about as far as other issues like housing and food and so forth. In the morning of the 19th, then I attended our SHAC meeting, and SHAC is looking at how to redo public health in the state of Minnesota, so that's always a fascinating discussion. And then the afternoon, there was a airport meeting, and most of us were there. And then in the evening was a Fair Board meeting. On the 20th, the ATP MT meeting. And on the 24th, I was at the District 5 meeting in Meeker County. And on the 27th, I was at our EMC meeting here in the office. So that's all for me. Okay, it looks like we are ready to adjourn. So we will adjourn our meeting now at 10:04 a.m.
And we'll just encourage everybody to get out and vote this next week.
Yep.
Yes.
Get out and vote.